Well, welcome to Thought for the Day on this Friday morning. Terry's been talking over the last couple of weeks a lot in Thoughts for the Day about humour and laughter. I really appreciate all that he's had to say about that. And it's been something that's been on my mind a bit over the last week or so, because today I'm going to be taking the funeral of a man for whom laughter played a large part in his life, by all accounts. He was someone who was a bit of a comedian, someone who played the fool, someone who didn't mind people laughing at him, sometimes I think almost provoked it. Their funeral, in place of one of the hymns, we're going to be singing Hi Ho Silver Lining. They want the funeral itself to have that thread of joy and laughter running through it. And as I was thinking about that, I was thinking that this ability to laugh at ourselves really ought to be something that marks out Christians. I think Christians are sometimes portrayed, and maybe rightly sometimes, as a bit serious and self-righteous, a bit straight-laced, maybe not good at laughing. But when we laugh at ourselves, we're saying two things which are maybe, I think, Christians particularly ought to be able to say. The first thing we're saying is that we're admitting our faults. We're saying, yeah, I know I forget everyone's names. I know I do this. We're saying, yeah, but we're saying, not only do I admit my faults, but when we laugh about them, we're saying, and we let others laugh about them, we're saying, I'm okay about my faults. I'm okay about my weaknesses. And isn't that where Christians should be? We are saved by God's grace. We are people who can be utterly honest about what's wrong with us. We can be utterly honest about the sin, the wrong that is in our lives. And yet we can know that we are completely right with God despite it, because of what Jesus did on the cross. So we shouldn't be always trying to present to people the best side of ourselves. We can be honest. We can laugh at the failings, because God has sent His Son to deal with them. There is something very Christian about laughing at ourselves, and it made me think too about Jesus. Now, I don't think that Jesus played the fool in the way we'd understand it. Because there is a kind of maybe a darker, a flip side of always playing the fool, which is that it's often done. We often use humour to deflect people from knowing ourselves. We turn serious conversations into light ones just to bounce the ideas off somewhere else. And it's very clear that Jesus in no way deflected those conversations. He didn't deflect people from knowing the real him. But nevertheless, there was something about his message that was foolish. St. Paul writes, hasn't God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God the world through its wisdom did not know him, God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. For the foolishness of God is wiser than man's wisdom. Jesus' message was, Paul says, utterly foolish. Now, he's not saying it was wrong, he's saying it appeared foolish. Particularly to the culture in which Paul had lived, the kind of Greek culture where there were lots of gods and where you had to give to each of the gods to try and placate them, to keep them happy. Into that culture are all these gods and all these things you have to do for the gods, all the things you have to give to the gods. Jesus' message was, the true God doesn't ask you to give to him. The true God gave himself for us. And he gave himself for us not at our best, but he gave himself for us at our worst. And through that gives us an acceptance, a value that the Bible also tells us turns mourning into dancing. turns a funeral into a welcome home party. And it turns insecure people, desperate to prove ourselves right to ourselves, to those around us, to the gods of our age, into people who have the security to laugh at ourselves, to let others laugh at us for the very best reasons. So may God bless you. May He give you a spirit of joy, a spirit of being able to laugh at yourself as you go through this day. God bless.